Hello and welcome to the Times Internet CXO Roundtable in association with Speed Hire. I'm Sukriti Aduvanshi, your host for the session. There is a rapid shift happening in the world of work. Thanks to ever evolving technology and the ability to conduct businesses online, telecommunicating has gone far from the distant pipe dream to a modern day reality. Employers are building teams of their dreams, drawing from a global pool of top talent. Virtual work options are a natural fit for the tech industry. But building a remote tech team comes with its own unique challenges. How do leaders ensure to hire and retain the most skilled tech talent even from afar? How are they building teams that are resulting in prosperous growth of the organizations? To understand all this, we have an esteemed panel of experts today here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Vijay Linis, lead early in careers APAC from NetApp. A subject matter expert in talent acquisition, Vijay has been involved in finding, developing, and retaining the talents across domains and industries. A strategist in talent acquisition, enabling diverse talent to impact businesses and communities. Vijay is presently holding a leadership role at NetApp. Our next speaker here, we have Bharat Raizada, who is the lead Chief Technology Officer from Wells Fargo, India and Philippines. Together with his team, Bharat is responsible for delivering key capabilities, driving technology transformation in areas such as agile, enterprise architecture, API management, developer enablement, cloud, and PaaS engineering. Bharat has over 21 years of experience in managing offshore delivery with cross geographical teams. Our third speaker here we have Mudit Kumar, who is the head revenue management product from Suntech Business Solutions. With over 20 years of experience, Mudit has deep knowledge and expertise in product management, engineering, project implementation, and business consulting for product based IT solutions. Over the course of his career and as a champion of digital transformation, Mudit has successfully led large and complex technology initiatives for clients globally. And our fourth speaker for today is Jagat Jituruk, who is the head of product, TechGeek, and Speed Hire from Times Internet. Jagat has 11 plus of experience, out of which he has spent 5 years in Times Internet. In his current role as a product lead for TechGeek, he works on building the techie community of close to 4 million techies and enterprise tech assessment solutions to assist companies hire better developers. Before this, he has worked on a couple of startups in the e-commerce and consulting spaces, wearing multiple hats, including tech and business leads. Now, I would request our eminent panel to give us an opening remarks.
Sukriti, you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And thanks for the warm welcome, Sukriti. As you mentioned, right, as a CTO for one of the largest financial services organizations globally, Wells Fargo has close to 40,000 technologists. And I can speak from experience, there is never a better time to be a technologist. As we hire, and be it from laterally or for campuses, we look for key skills that we will talk about in today's conversation in our people. But one of the really important ones we look for is an ability to be agile and an ability to innovate. Because if there's one thing this pandemic has taught us is you can't really forecast the future. The ability to innovate is critical. We do that for our employees through our Celebrating Technology umbrella, where we celebrate innovation days through innovation labs, engineering academies, and special interest groups. But it continues to be very, very critical for our lateral hiring as well as campus hires that we recruit for. We will talk a lot more about this over the next hour odd with you, but I would say remote teams pre-pandemic or post, these are our fundamental tenets of hire continue to be the same. So a really important topic for today, and I look forward to engaging with you and the other panelists through the course of the hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharat. Jagat, can we have remarks from you as well?
Sure. Thanks, Sukriti. So this is from my experience of interacting with the different tech companies in their hiring process, because the assessment solutions that we build, they're extensively used by some of the top companies for hiring. So what we have seen is most companies, when they are hiring good technical talent, they are not just focusing on the tech skills, but also on the soft skills, whether a person will come in and fit into my company. With the technology solutions that we have currently, some of that is sorted, because in a post-COVID area, in a pre-COVID era, a lot of it was face-to-face. The line manager was not just evaluating a person on their technical skills. They were also looking at whether this is a person who will come and fit into my team and contribute incrementally. In a post-COVID era, the face-to-face thing is missing, but there are tools which would help you simulate some of those face-to-face interactions. The technical bits are still sorted out with the technologies that we have. The soft skills, there are assessments around which would help you do behavioral analysis of a people and tell you whether the person is fitting in or not. But all the data that these tools are giving, you'd still need a person as a gatekeeper who'd be looking at the data and taking support from the data to come to a decision. So we'll discuss a lot of this when we go ahead in the conversation. But many of these tools are there to stay. They'll be used a lot more extensively because people have used them in the post-COVID era and are used to the new norms which has come in.
Thank you, Jagat. Mudit?
Hey, thanks, Sukriti, and really excited to be a part of this discussion today. I come from a company, Suntech, and we are a product-based company. We serve niche markets, niche solutions for telecom, for finance, for travel industry. The talent for us, talent acquisition and talent retention for us has got some unique challenges because we are absolutely not a services organization. We are into developing product and delivering the product. The challenges that we had before the pandemic, those challenges have not really gone away. But in some senses, the current situation has actually opened new opportunities for us because now, it's an accepted norm that location is no longer a barrier, place of work is no longer a barrier. All the infrastructure and IT needs that the employees have are being serviced quite well for work from home as well. But having said that, there are certain challenges, newer challenges that have started coming in. In fact, recently I was reading a report on how the talent is actually trying to sit with multiple offers in hand, and at the last minute is deciding not to join a specific company. So this is putting in a lot of strain, a lot of uncertainty in our hiring process as well. And the talent acquisition team in our organization has worked through these challenges in quite interesting ways. So we'll talk a lot about that in this discussion, and I look forward for a great discussion with all the panelists today.
Thank you, Mudit. Vijay, your turn, please.
Thank you, Sukriti. It's a pleasure to be in this esteemed panel and conversation. I'm humbled to be here to start with. And at NetApp, we as a product organization more into cloud and storage, this has been a very, very thriving environment for us, especially when many universities, many companies moving into the cloud space, especially with work from home and all of that. So we as an organization have been really clear in our view and even acquiring certain companies to enable our product portfolio. And so with that, also coming into hiring and also retaining talent, it's important to give candidate experience. It is important to give employee experience. So we've really adapted to the challenge which the whole pandemic has thrown at us. Engaging internships remotely, engaging graduate hiring remotely, engaging even the academies remotely. As we speak, we are almost winding up on one of our sales academies this particular year. And so we've really adapted to it and also innovate on processes. So tools for sure, but then processes have to be innovative as well, which fit into the requirement. And so as we speak, we surely share more of those innovative approaches we have taken. So I'm really excited to share all of this and also learn from the other panelists as well. So yeah, thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Vijay. I would actually like to thank each one of you for being a part of this discussion and agreeing to share the knowledge and experience that you have and the insights. I'm actually looking forward to a very power-packed discussion today. So without any further delay, I will just kickstart the session and will throw the first question that I have to the forum. To start with, to succeed in an increasingly competitive IT world or in the entire corporate world, more enterprises are relying on geographical dispersed workforces. Such organizations build IT teams providing the best functional expertise regardless of each individual's physical location. While collated teams may have advantages over dispersed teams in some respects, there are growing consensus that a well-planned and organized dispersed or remote team may actually give adopters an upper hand. So, regardless of the role that you are hiring, the most successful remote teams are made up of the employees with a few essential qualities only. So, how do you identify the tech talent, and what is the process that you follow? So, I would like to start with you, Vijay. That what are the processes in place in your organization, and how do you actually implement those?
So we, it has been a process for us, and this is not new for us actually, when it comes to remote hiring. And we have used Zoom from a tool perspective very, very effectively. We've also used Teams as a tool very effectively to engage with candidates inside and outside. When I say inside and outside, inside also, we when we look at hiring, let's not forget there are internal candidates as well. So IJP has been a very, very big thing for us as well. So innovative way of approaching is all about, how do we engage with candidates over the period of time? It's remote, right? And how do you really keep them engaged with the whole conversation? How uh, how are you using the tools which is available right there with you to keep the conversation going? And so we've also got on board a couple of tools like Eightfold. These are global tools which we've got on board, like Eightfold and many other tools, which has helped us in candidate assessment, video interviewing, video pre-assessments, and also these are tools which are AI driven, result oriented. So we've really invested on these to enable us globally and even within India to pick up the right candidates. So that's what we've really adapted to quickly. And like I said, this is not a new thing for us. Like, we've been thinking about it, talking about it for a long time. We've also done a lot of remote hiring in the past as well. So that's really helped us as we moved into this pandemic situation.
Right. Thanks, Vijay, for that. Bharat, I would like to move to you, and I would like to understand that Wells Fargo is, you have different projects when it comes to these things as per the normal IT industry. So, when it comes to this process fixation and defining the hiring strategies, how do you think that this is in place
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, Sukriti, I mean, it's a great question. And if you think about Wells Fargo, right, we are in the fintech space and we have been working globally. So we are globally across US, India, Philippines. So when we look at hiring of talent, we anyway cast our net, so to say, far and wide, right? So a lot of the structures that we have put in are anyway already there. They do not consider that a person should be in the base location, because then we are fundamentally restricting the talent we can interview for. And I interview for talent that is anywhere across India or anywhere across the globe in some cases, right? I think there are some key skills we look for when we look for hiring talent. We definitely look for a 360-degree evaluation. So what that involves is, one is obviously the fundamental technical capability of a person, design thinking aspects. But what's really important, which becomes even more important as we think from a pandemic standpoint, is some of their interpersonal skills, ability to communicate effectively, ability to work in teams. Teams, again, if I think of teams in most of our cases, our teams have always not been co-located, right? You could have team members sitting in India and a bunch of team members sitting in Charlotte in the US or some other location. But that becomes even more important now. The third big aspect we look at is their ability to innovate and solve real world problems in a rapidly changing environment, because this pandemic has thrown some real curveballs in from that standpoint. So that's again a fundamental tenet. And the last but not the least is an ability to really work with a sense of partnership across the global organization, because again, everybody's in a separate location. So the big picture view, I would say, Sukriti, for us is we've always looked at talent non-co-located, so to say. When we start evaluating talent, we have added additional positive structures on top of it. For example, onboarding has gone completely remote. So we do remote onboarding. You really do not need to come somewhere to sign a paper and such. So all of that, along with our fundamental hiring capabilities, has really helped us accelerate. And we continue to hire in strong numbers as we did pre the pandemic as now.
Thanks for that, Bharat. I know because, hiring technical talent is itself has become a huge challenge. I'm sure that the shift that has come because of the pandemic was something we were partially prepared for and not fully, right? So, bringing these things, narrowing down to picking up the right talent and assessing it qualitatively and quantitatively has actually changed a lot of things in the hiring process altogether. Mudit, I would move to you and I would like to understand from you that what are the processes in Suntech and how do you think that it's being addressed there?
Yeah, Sukriti, so for Suntech, for us, selection of the right talent has always been a very critical factor, because us being a product company, the quality of talent that we hire directly reflects in the quality of our product. Now, before this pandemic itself, we actually had started moving away from the traditional methods of technical hiring, of conducting in-house exams and all that stuff. We actually started using partners like TechGig, HackerRank, etc., for conducting those exams for us and for conducting those tests. We then are referring to the technical quotient scores that the candidates earn in these platforms. Also, to remove any element of doubt, we conduct video interviews, walkthrough of algorithms or any questions that they have answered to make sure that it's the same person who has conducted the exam, or any unfair means have not been used. But to me, selecting technology, selecting on the basis of technology is relatively easy, because you can be a great guy in technology, but a very difficult person to work with. And in current times, we look for people and we assess for people who can be accountable for their work, who do not require micromanagement, are extremely quality conscious. The cost of rework or any release shipped returning back, the loss of productive hours that we would have, or loss of credibility that we would have in market is too huge. So that really plays a very, very high, heavy. We give a lot of importance towards assessment on whether the person is quality conscious or not. And obviously that person has to have this collaborative mindset. So as far as it comes to the technology side of things, it's actually partners have actually sorted it out for us. There are a good number of partners, very good platforms which actually help us assess the technical quotient of individuals. But the rest of the stuff, their ability to work in our culture. So that's also very important. You might be a great guy, but you have to fit into a Suntech culture. We have developed a specific culture over a period of time, and we find that people who fit in this culture are able to do much better than others. So all that assessment is still done through face-to-face interactions, and they're not really interviews. We don't really do question and answer kind of interviews. It's a very, very interesting interaction, an intellectual interaction where we learn from the candidate and the candidate learns from us. Whether the candidate gets selected or does not get selected, that outcome, there's definitely an outcome, but at the same time, we ensure that throughout the whole process, we make it a positive experience for both ourselves and the candidates who go through this journey.
Thanks, Mudit. A lot of insights you've brought, and you've actually set up a pre-rule for me to ask several other questions. Jagat, I have a different question for you. So, after all these insights, from different industry perspective, I would like to know from you that what are the aspects of technical hiring that can be replaced with the technical assessment tools?
Sukriti, Mudit alluded to a lot of it in what he said. So there are three aspects to technical hiring, right? There's the sourcing bit, there's the screening bit, and there's the selection bit. For the sourcing bit, traditionally companies have relied on job boards like Times Jobs or a Naukri or Shine. That has shifted to communities like TechGig, on which there is a passive pool of talent who are not actually looking for a job, but if something interesting comes their way, they would be interested. Then you have the screening bit, which is more or less figured out because you're evaluating people on their technical skills. If you have set up a test paper, which would do justice to that evaluation, then anyone who has passed through that test paper and got a certain tech quotient, that, and there's a stack ranking, that who's good, who's not good. So these two parts are sorted out, and companies are open to relying on tools like TechGig for doing the sourcing and the screening bit. But when it comes to the final selection bit, in which you are not just doing an algorithm walkthrough or asking role-based questions, but also you are evaluating whether a person is fitting into your culture, whether the person will come in and contribute incrementally in the teams. Is he a good team player? That's where companies still want to have a face-to-face interaction and take that decision.
Right. Thank you for sharing that, Jagat. The bifurcation that we do in the hiring process actually puts us in place to actually pick up the way we are hiring a particular candidate in terms of qualitative or quantitative analysis. So I would like to understand from Mudit that I'm sure that these strategies have a certain set of challenges, right, Mudit? And if there are challenges, if there are obstacles in terms of hiring, degrees, the shift that we have taken from degree-centric hiring to skill-based hiring when it comes to the tech talent. What are the challenges I would like to know that has come into the space right now?
Excellent question, Sukriti. So fortunately for us, I would say 20 years back, probably I was the last batch which got selected or got through the degree-based hiring process in my organization. We dropped that long time back. In our organization, it has always been, and it continues to be totally based on skills and based on attitudes, positive attitude. We, as part of specifying our job description or specifying our expectation, we are allowed to tell if there's any preferred qualification. But so there's always a very base minimum qualification that we look for. But at the same time, we're very, very flexible when it comes to the qualifications, as long as the person is able to establish that the person has the right technical skills and has the right soft skills and is going to fit within our organization well. Now, the thing, and especially in today's world, one of the challenge that all of us are facing is the rate of change of the technology is very high. I'm still learning those technologies which probably are going to be obsolete next year, and new guys in the market, new guys in the industry have already started and are way ahead of me as an individual in learning new technologies. So I mean, it's absolutely, for at least in our organization, it makes no sense to think of those draconian ways of you have to have this much, this qualification, this much percentage, and this stream of engineering, and we've reduced that significantly. Only for very, very specific roles, we specify such preconditions. We have actually adopted more and more technology in our hiring process itself, so which helps us not only eliminating the need for these degrees, but it also, like Bharat was explaining, you have to cast your net as wide as possible. And we come from my company is headquartered in south of India. I'm a Punjabi working in a South Indian company for last 20 years. So we've started doing more attention towards diversity as well, both gender diversity as well as regional diversity. So we now create batches. We're very conscious that when people are brought in, more instead of focusing on their degrees and their colleges that they won't go into, we focus on preparing the right mix, so that when these people come into the organization, they stick together as with a bond. Today also almost all of us talk about my school days. In 10th, I had my friends. In my 12th, I had my friends. You even talk of college, but most often you don't talk of your jobs. When I joined, I had a batch. That has gone away. So we are trying to bring that back, bring that culture back, try to have people with diverse backgrounds, diverse regions, different languages. And when you create that mix of people, somehow that bonding happens between them. And, when they as a group bond well, they work together for us, for a longer duration as well. So I think from moving away from degree-centric hiring to skill-based hiring has been quite an easy journey for us. We started it a long time back. The challenge, however, like I said in the in my opening remarks, is in last few months, and especially during this pandemic times, we are finding the wider your net is, you will find that the amount of time and effort that is being spent in getting the right talent, and then finally realizing that person is not going to join you, that challenge is there, right? There is no, and that challenge for us is slightly even more compounded because in these times, we refrain from, having buffer offers. Earlier, if I had 5 positions, I might give 7 offers. I would know that 2 people would drop off, but I can't do that anymore, right? We have got constraints. So I think that is one challenge that we will have to, as an industry, we'll have to overcome. And I think there would be more common sense will prevail in next few months. People would stop doing this, getting into this mode of trying to get 5 offers in hands and then trying to choose on the last day. We've had some situations where people walk out on the last day of joining. I mean, that's just not correct. So it's those challenges that we have to address. Otherwise, skill-based hiring is something we focus on, not really based on how which degree are you taking from, which college you have come from. We've stepped away from that long time back.
Agreed, Mudit. I mean, I'm also very certain about this, that this entire remote hiring process has actually put us in a place where we have plethora of opportunities in terms of hiring diverse profiles and in terms of hiring individuals with, not just good skills in terms of jobs or a particular project, but as a human being, as somebody that can actually add value to the team.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you for that, Mudit. Bharat, I would like to move to you, and I would like to understand from you that if there are any challenges that you've, as a CTO of Wells Fargo, have been facing since the pandemic, or maybe in the past or during this time.
Yeah. No, I think interesting conversation I was hearing Mudit speak, right? So as I look at even see the reason you have to think beyond the degree is the world changes really fast in financial services, and I'm thinking And we can relate to it in India, right? How many times do we go to a bank branch? It's completely gone away. How many times do you carry cash when you make a transaction? It's really changed. The technology has changed. The way our customers deal with products has changed, which means how we define some of the solutions has changed. Therefore, the skill you have to look for is somebody who can approach a problem in the right way. So even when we hire for, I'm less concerned about the language that the person is using to write the code. What I'm looking for is problem solving approach. Do you approach the problem in the right way? And we do this all the time in interviews. We'll start with a simple question, we layer it with a little bit more complexity, and see how do you innovate and how do you solve for that problem. It's really interesting. Now we will come across candidates who at first sight from a resume you may not see the best of talent, but they would have their open source GitHub profiles where they are working on really cool work. So you can use that as a conversation point as we cast our net. So therefore you look at people who can think of innovatively solving problems, and therefore that comes beyond just the technical capabilities. We have a great program that we launched recently called the Glide program that we have, which looks at women who are looking to come back from a career break back into the industry. We know there's a great pool of talent there. The skill and the thinking and the capability is absolutely there with or without the break. And therefore, we find that to be a great skill. I have people in my organization who are veterans from our armed forces. So there is capability there. So I think what we have to look for, and some of these assessments, as one of the panelists rightly said, right, some of these assessment tools help us gauge from a screening perspective, saying, hey, can this person answer a technical problem with the right design thinking? But then you have to see how well can they innovate, how well can they think a little bit differently at real time, because you could have a situation where something like a pandemic hits and really you would see your digital transactions going up. Now, this is a real-time problem. You then have to design a solution which was defined for a specific set of transactions, and now that's increasing. So you need people who can innovatively think and design. And that's why we look beyond just the degree, as Mudit also said, just the degree. We look at the skill, we look at the way you think, and most importantly, how can you work as a team? Because it's really, really important in the current setup and even going forward. You would probably be working in a globally distributed team to solve some of these pieces. So it's a really interesting time, and it poses its own set of unique opportunities.
Rightly said, Bharat. And I believe that the approach for both the candidates and the employers has changed, has actually added, has been dynamic in today's time, has become more dynamic in terms of looking at somebody not just from the perspective of a project that you're hiring him or her for, but as an overall value that it will add. So, Vijay, I think you will have a different, input here to add, because all of us have been talking from the technical perspective. Let's just focus and talk about from the HR perspective, and just understand that what are the set of challenges that you have, come across so far.
I mean, one of the things that Mudit mentioned about was the culture, right? It's so important to have somebody fit into the organization's culture. So we, as an organization, we really focus on culture. We are big on culture. We're very much known for culture in the industry, and so it's important for us to have somebody fit into the culture. That's one of the pieces which fairly is a big checkpoint for us. Second thing is competency, right? Now, competency, you can come from any different background, but if you have the right competency for that particular role. And so we, like Bharat mentioned earlier, spread the net wide. We have, as an organization, have done that. And one, I would say, I'm just going to bring in some of our investment into hiring graduates for go-to-market roles. And we've, in fact, brought in people from pharma background, from airline background, right? I'm just kept it open, who can fit into the roles, who's willing to learn who's willing to mold themselves. So that's another thing. Keeping the net wide open and looking at beyond what you always look at. The other thing is, from coming back to technology hiring, um, looking at, one of the things is there's this whole statistics within India is so many graduates come out every year, engineering graduate come out every year, but how many are employable, right? So that's where we've really adapted to the internship to conversion sort of model. 78% of our interns get converted. 75 to 78% of our interns get converted. We really big on internship. We believe on long-term internships. We believe that they bring in, and we have assessments for the internships as well. How are they performing? Where can we intervene and all of that? So employability has been one of the things which is fairly a challenging piece. While some of them can come from great schools, but do they fit into your organization from a culture point of view, competency point of view, skill point of view, right? Bharat mentioned about innovation, right? Got to be innovative. In today's world, you've got to, even we HR guys have to be innovative, right? I mean, you cannot say innovation is only for technology or one particular area. Any process, any particular portfolio, you've got to be innovative. So we, as within the HR organization, have been also innovative in approaching this particular process. One of the things we really launched is Innovathon, which is more of again keeping it wide open to all the universities and colleges, and asking graduates, come up if you have an idea, come up to us. We will mentor you, we will coach you, and get that idea to prototype. And then if it fits our organization, we'll see how we can co-patent it, or we will really incubate you to move into something else. Because we also, as an organization, we have something called as accelerator, which is more of an incubation center for new startups. So we have a plethora of options which basically help these sort of challenges to address. And it's been like Bharat said, it's been a beautiful time for technology companies. I use the word beautiful because it has given us so many opportunities to be innovative, thinking differently. Yeah.
You're absolutely right, Vijay, and I completely agree, because the kind of workforce that we are trying to build right now, without even physically meeting everyone and working remotely, and actually fulfilling the responsibilities that your team lead or your leader gives you and counts upon you to actually work on a particular project. There are things that everybody has to take care of, and if you talk about the change that people do, which I want to understand this also from you, that uh, what about the perspective when it comes to hiring somebody from a different industry, let's just say, maybe because there were the a preference in the past that IT companies will only hire people from the IT domain, right, and not from any other industry. So how has that changed? I'm sure that with the diversity thing that we've talked about, has that changed up to a huge mark, or we're still there because resume has become a thing of the past right now?
Yeah, so very good question. The thing is, it requires mindset change. Clearly, it really requires we as HR organization to think differently, propagate that differently, plus bring in the leadership onto the table, have that conversation, pick up examples, right? You've got to pick up some examples and bring it to the table. And like I said, we have been fairly successful because we start with internship. You test the waters, see how it goes. Then you see how the whole, what competencies and skills these guys, these candidates, these students, or whoever it is brings to the table. So it's important to give them that advantage, give them that flexibility as a business group, because end of the day, they're also responsible for the ROI. So we need to, and each release is so important for everyone. So it's important that we bring in the right blend of experimenting with. We'll continue to do the traditional way. We'll also do earmarks, few requisitions to experiment from bringing in candidates from different competencies and different backgrounds. And so that's what is important. And that will bring in a better level of confidence into the whole process, and they will be more buy-in. It's extremely important to bring that mindset change. So that's what we've been really successful at NetApp.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Vijay. Moving on to the next question, which is actually all about defining the experience, not just for us as an organization, but as candidates as well. I would like to understand that, while we as leaders have made the efforts to hire the best candidates, offering a great candidate experience in technical recruitment too counts, as it creates an impression about the organization. So, what are your thoughts on this, and how do you think that we can actually create that impression with the audience? Jagat, we have some inputs from you first?
Sure. So this is on the basis of feedback that we get from candidates who have taken the test. The candidate experience is a very important element of the entire hiring process. Things have changed post-COVID because you are not going to the campus, experiencing the hospitality there, but it has become a lot about what are the kind of follow-ups that I'm getting. Are my queries being handled correctly? And also the quality of questions. The quality of questions leaves a certain perception in the candidate about you as an organization. I might not have got through the test, but if I enjoyed giving the test, and if I enjoyed that process of giving it, I loved solving the problem, and I still scored a 0 and I didn't get through, that leaves a perception in me about the company. Instead of let's say I solved the problem, I did not like the problem, it was something very theoretical. So companies are increasingly focusing on the test bed, and also on the format. As an example, if you're hiring, say, a Spring Boot developer or a React developer, and you ask him to go through a set of MCQs that solve these 20 MCQs as part of the screening process, while that may be while that may be a method to do it, it can be an efficient method to do it but from a candidate experience standpoint, it's not a great method. If you're hiring a React developer, the developer would expect that you would evaluate him hands-on on his skills before you decide to take an interview. So that's an increasingly format change that we are looking at from the market, in which the candidate wants to be evaluated hands-on on his skills, and companies are also looking to do hands-on skills rather than just theoretical screening and then taking an interview. The format is a very important part of the candidate experience, besides the quality of questions which goes into the assessment.
Thank you, Jagat. And I do believe that, as organizations, we are trying to put our efforts in terms of adding the technology to create that seamless experience for both the ends, right? I would like to move to Bharat, and Bharat, just help me understand that, what are the things that you think should come into force here, and what are the things that we can implement when it comes to creating a great candidate experience while we recruit them?
No, a great point, and I think Jagat covered some of it. Right, they are not coming to our campuses, so the conversations are virtual. One perspective I would definitely say, which I said at the beginning, is some of this used to happen earlier as well, since not all hirings were in the locations we were. But now this is happening in all cases. So that's a little bit of a change. I think we build accountability of whoever is getting hired lies not just with the talent acquisition team, to Jagat's point, right? The screening and the selection, but we also have the manager as part of the system, because we think of recruitment as not just at starting of interviewing and selecting, but really we are recruiting till the time a person really joins the organization. So we want to make sure anybody who's interviewing has a fantastic experience while you interview, whether we select you or not, because remember, that person is going back and talking to his or her buddies on WhatsApp or on their social media network and saying how their experience was. So we try and sensitize our managers and our team members to say, remember, every person you are interviewing is really, really important because the network's really connected, right? So that's one piece. We other than obviously the standard assessments that we do to check their problem solving design skills, what we do is we also do one-on-one or panel discussions based on the need and the type of hiring we are doing. We always, as part of these conversations, talk about what would your work or your day be once you join Wells Fargo. Let's not assume, to the point that Mudit met, just because we like you, you like us, right? It's a little bit of both liking each other, and the stronger the talent, the better you have to play that. Therefore, I always make sure, for example, whichever organization I work for, I make it a point to tell them, how would your work be? What would you be working on? Why should you join our organization? And then we make sure through the course, from the time if everything, all the ducks line up, we select the candidate till the time the person joins, there's a regular connect from the talent acquisition team as well as the lead who's hiring them to make sure they are comfortable, they are set, all their queries are answered. And I would say we need to ensure this experience continues for all use cases, whether we hired or did not hire. Remember, it's a very connected economy. So I'll put it back to you, Sukriti. Hope that answers your question.
So, Bharat, I'm just curious to know this, that when you talk to the candidates, and when you actually create an approach for different people, putting them into a situation where if you would be working for Wells Fargo, I want to understand that we have different candidates, and different candidates have a different approach themselves. And in a world where we are living with so much of connections with each other, like LinkedIn, and so many platforms we exchange our experiences on. How do you think that that approach individually also matters? Because going too easy, going too hard on them would not work, right? Would not absolutely make it work for the organization as well. So how do you think that bit has changed?
Yeah, I think some of this is a little bit of a conversation because each person is unique, and I think that's the beauty of interviewing, right? Each person is unique, each role is different, so you have to talk for them in the context of their specific roles, and also try and gauge. And it's even at that point when we are talking, we are also trying to understand, hey, what are you looking for? Because we are in a space where a right talent is more important. A bad hire is worse than a no hire. Therefore, we need to make sure that we offer what you like, and your drivers that are bringing you in are connected to what we are looking for. And that's the culture aspect, I think one of our panelists talked about, right? Because that culture fit is really, really important. And when we are doing that over a conversation such as this, it is really important to sense how they're communicating, because you can't see their body language completely. So it's really important to have that really direct conversation, a really frank conversation. I would like to think we do a good job, but I think this continues to be something we continue to focus on.
Absolutely, Bharat, and I think this will change every day. This is going to change every day as per the experiences that we are building. We're trying to build every day. So every time we hire somebody, we'll be doing that on the basis of the past hires, right? So with this, Mudit, I would like you to add your inputs here and help me understand that with all these things, all these technological innovation, and so many platforms up there, when it comes to questions, when it comes to giving them any kind of problems, how do you deal with it?
Yeah. See, candidate experience is a very sensitive topic and a very important topic in my organization as well. So extremely, it's such an important topic that we've been made to realize that these days, though you are the one who is setting up the interview, but in all probabilities, you are the one who's getting interviewed. The guy who's actually sitting in front of you is no longer a guy who is necessarily just waiting or begging for a job. He is looking for the best option where he can make a difference. So that sort of changes the whole mindset altogether. The way you interact, you can no longer have interviews with an approach that tell me what you will do for me and tell me, you're putting them, very odd situations. Those kind of interviews don't work for us well. what we have found is we have to be very, very sensitive to the fact that it's not just it's selection or no selection is an outcome, but the whole process is what sticks into that person's mind. And like Bharat was saying, they've got a network. It's the news spreads very easily. It's so serious in our organization that we have to go through a certification program internally to be able to go through and to be able to qualify for selecting people in the organization. So it's not that, you can just have anyone walking in and, anyone just doing interview for anyone. You have to be a certified person. There's a process we go through. And unless, the organization feels that you have the right, attitude, you have the right way of approaching the problems. And given that, everything happens remotely right now, you have the right sensitivities. You've got to balance a lot of things these days when you're having any interaction with the individual. So you've got to take it very with a lot of sensitivities. So I would say, as far as candidate experience is concerned, technology, in my opinion, is not really helping much. In the sense, technology can be intimidating in many ways. If you're subjecting to a lot of systems and a lot of exams and all, the most important aspect of giving a positive experience in the whole selection process is, one, are you clear in what you are looking for? Second, are you giving the right updates at the right time? Very simple things. If you're arranging an interaction, if you're arranging a session, are you on time? All right, or are you sort of going in the last minute and saying, look, I have a client meeting and I have to defer this this interview. So all these small things add up to a positive or a negative experience. And be clear. If you have selected a candidate or if you have not selected a candidate, don't leave it uncertain for the person, because they appreciate openness. We've had instances where candidates who were perfect, who were really great, but we were not having the right fitment in our organization, and we were upfront with them. Look, you're a great person, you've got great competencies, but this specific role which we are looking for, you are either not qualified or you're overqualified, or whatever be the reason. And we were surprised that when we've been very transparent and when we've been when we have given a positive experience, the person who has not been selected goes an extra mile to actually give you a positive feedback about the positive experience that they have had. And if they've given you a positive feedback, I'm sure they would be giving a positive feedback elsewhere as well. He would like to go and say, look, you know what? I did not make it to this organization, but I hope you do, because I'm sure you will be happy working over there. So that's the experience that we aspire to offer to anyone who interacts with our organization. And for that, I would say it's more of a human touch that plays a role. We should not be overly relying on technology. At the end, we are interacting with humans. We are not interacting with machines. Humans have emotions. Humans have feelings. So it's important that we connect at that level rather than just at the technical level. You've gone mute, I think, Sukriti.
Sukriti, you're on mute, I think.
No, we've lost your audio, I think. So,
Hello?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay now.
Yeah. So I was just saying that, I've got some new perspective added here that, you have to be certified to actually have an eye to hire candidates. And that's a wonderful thing that, the organization has actually picked up. Vijay, I would move to you and I would like to know your thoughts here because, as a human resource, I mean, who actually play a very important role when it comes to actually organizing the primary stages of any hiring portion. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so candidate experience, and like most of the panelists mentioned, candidate experience is extremely important for us as an organization. as we speak, we are working on a particular particular process, redefining the process for our organization as well, looking at where can we do better and how we can do better. Now, with all of this having said, it all starts with, first thing is your job description. Many a times, job descriptions are very generic. Job descriptions don't really convey the message, because that's the first selling point for any candidate to apply to your organization. So I know it might be a little granular, but that's where the difference is. And so job description is so important to have the right information. It also should have, why should somebody apply to this company? Why should I apply to this company? Job description should give you that information of what is a value proposition for that individual to apply, right? It's also important that for the candidate, what is the whole process which is followed. You explain to them the process. Tell them upfront, so this is what the process we're going to follow to have you apply and go through this whole process, right? So it also important is the brand name of the manager. I'm using this word, it's a new term for some of us, but the brand value of the manager. Moment as I'm applying for this particular job position, they're very, very easy for anybody in today's world to find out which is the team they're going to apply, which is the team is this job is for, who's the manager, and all of that. So it's so important that I, as a hiring manager, carry a good brand value of myself, because Glassdoor and so many other social media available, for anybody to post about me as a manager and give them their experiences. So that's another important thing. And I remember earlier when earlier in another organization, when people would apply, they will ask, is this for this particular team? And we would say, yes, this is for this particular team. And they will always had so many questions around about that particular team. So there was curiosity even before they could apply. That is the value one brings in when it comes to candidate experience, right? And of course, technology does help in one way, like Mudit mentioned. Technology is an enabler, but end of the day, it's the human interaction. Many a times, interviewers go into an interview without even reviewing the resume. Right? It's complete, and like what Mudit mentioned about training and certifying, we as well follow. We don't follow certification, but we follow training for every interviewer to go into an interview. And many times it's so important. Like, as much as we are assessing the candidate is assessing us. Candidates are big brand ambassadors to the organization, even if they don't join. So it's important to bring in that experience for all of these candidates, whether they get hired or not. Give them the right experience. Even if in that 5-10 minutes of your interview, this individual is not going to make it, but give him or her the right experience. And then they carry that back. Many a times, some of your candidates could be your customers. Right? So important for us to value every candidate, give them the right experience.
Rightly said, Vijay. And to talk about this, one thing I'm really happy about is that now candidates don't actually complain about HR sitting with their, final results, that whether they are hired or not. Now everything is in process. You apply and things are sorted for you. You don't have to wait for a call. Okay, the HR is going to call me and yes, I am hired, I'm not hired. Because most of the time, this used to happen earlier that if I'm not hired, so I'm not getting a call. I have to assume that I'm not hired. Okay, so that process has changed, and a lot of things have been put in place. Let's just talk about a little, technicalities and the technical point of view through which we actually focus onto the tech hiring. Jagat, I want to understand from you that what are the important parameters of a code written by a prospective candidate, and how should it be considered during the evaluation process?
Sukriti, it depends on the what dimension the company is looking for when they are doing the coding assessment. So if they are looking for someone who knows the syntax and has basic problem solving skills, someone who can be trained into the job, then they would typically go for an easy problem, look at the score, uh, do a stack ranking, and do the interviews. If they are looking for a problem solver, someone who can solve complex problems, they're not just looking at the score. They are also looking at whether the code which has been written is optimized. Earlier in the discussion, Bharat had pointed out that in their hiring process, there are layers of complexity which are built into the problem once the user has solved the problem. Uh, Many companies are doing exactly that. So when you look at a coding problem, there would be certain test cases which would pass if you have a naive solution. There would be other test cases which would not pass if unless the solution is optimized. So you know that anyone who scored a 40 out of 100 has got it right, but the code is not optimized. Someone who's got it 80 out of 100, you know that okay, the code is optimized, but it is not optimized to the best that is possible, which is why they have lost out certain marks there. Uh, then there are companies who are not just looking at whether the person knows the syntax, has he written optimized code. They are also looking at whether the code has been written properly, whether the right rules have been followed, whether it has low technical debt, because they would like to onboard someone who's not just a great problem solver, but also follows the right set of processes when it comes to writing the code. Otherwise, it will become non-maintainable. Uh, from an from a coding assessment perspective, there's a certain trend that we have noticed when it comes to internal assessment and external hiring assessment. When companies are doing external hiring assessment, they want people to solve the problem, because if nobody gets a score, then it becomes very difficult to hire on the basis of the score. When companies are doing internal assessment, they are really harsh on their employees. Companies look for additional things like, can we limit the number of lines they can write in the piece of code? Can we put a constraint on the time for which the test case will be executed? Can we put a constraint on the memory that it will use? So those kind of requirement comes in, and companies want to make it very difficult for internal employees to be able to solve the problem. So that's a trend that we have seen. We have had cases in which companies have said, give us a problem that nobody will be able to solve, and we did exactly that. Nobody was able to solve it. Then the company came back and said, at least someone should have solved it. So those were problems. Even we ran it internally. Some of the best developers that we have had, they could not solve it, but everyone loved the experience. So when we had the debriefing session, uh, everyone was like, give us half an hour more and then we'll be able to solve it. We said, okay, go back, take the whole day and then come back. When we did the debriefing session in the evening, that was an experience, because then you have the aha moment, because people have spent 5 hours, 6 hours trying to solve the problem and they still did not get it right. What happens is, when you're working, once you're out of college and you're working in a certain setup, uh, with your job, you tend to forget your algorithms. So when you get a competitive programming challenge, you want to go back to your books, brush up your concepts, and then get to solve the problem. So it's a great tool for uh, internal engagement, and the trend is people want it difficult for the internal employees.
But this is so interesting, Jagat, that rather than having a bias for inside candidates, you were trying to build up a problem that just not solving. You have solutions for it, but really, I mean, this is a good thing also, that you try to actually let your internal engagement be up to such a level where they would actually understand the requirement, and at the same time, they would know their level of skills that they own, and maybe this is the time that they should brush it up or maybe upskill themselves, right?
So,
This
Kriti,
is
to add to that, there's another interesting trend that we have seen. So, we have a community of 4 million users, right? So everyone who has given an assessment has been assessed on a certain skill. So I can look at the data of, say, Infosys and look at the people who have taken Java test, and I can tell that people at a certain tech quotient or more are eligible to get into an Infosys. I can look at another company, look at the average tech quotient there for a certain skill, and I can tell you exactly what kind of tech quotient is needed in that skill to be able to get into that company. Now, those are data people were not interested in the pre-COVID era, but we have reached out to companies and we have told them that this is the kind of data, and now companies are open to exploring those data points because it brings down the time of hiring. There's already data for a test which was done 4 months back on a skill in which I am hiring. I can look at that data and look at the hiring process there.
right. This is an absolutely amazing trend that you've shared with us, Jaga. Thank you for that. Bharat, what are the things for you? I mean, of course, the kind of projects that Wells Fargo deals with would be a little different from the normal IT industry projects. So, how about you? How do you think
Yeah, it
you
was
go about
interesting listening to Jagat. So yeah, I would say we don't have that approach that Jagat talked about. So in fact, IJP, or as we call it, internal job posting, is a definite stream we have for hiring candidates. But when I interview, for example, lateral hires, and I've come through as a technologist, right? I've been in their shoes. What I look for is, when we give them a problem, one is, how do they approach the problem? So fundamental understanding of basic concepts, I think that's really important. One of our common ways of starting off, and this is obviously after they have been through the standard assessments that are there, so we are talking to a smaller set of folks. One of the first pieces we try and do sometimes is start with a simple problem statement, and then on top of it layer the complexity. Say, all right, what if now you have to design the same solution for not 50 users, 50,000 users? How would you make sure the system works 24/7? So start adding some of those layers of complexity and see how they approach the problem. The other really important piece there is, and in the real world this would happen when a customer gives you the requirement. They wouldn't just bake the cake for you at the first go, right? They will give you the requirement because some of it is stated, some not so much. Therefore, I personally look for a candidate who can ask me, in case it's not very clear, saying, Bharat, can I assume that this is a use case, or can you please tell me what about this state? That for me is an additional plus, because when you will get into the real world, you will have a project where not everything is completely understood. Therefore, you will have to go talk to the customer on it. So that's an additional piece. Then an ability to optimize. Once you get something, we will say, do you think this is the most optimal way of doing it? Is this the most optimal way, or is there something better? So people who can optimize is another big positive. And then in the end state, to the point that Jagat was also saying, right? How do you use some of the coding best practices? So there are things like maintainability, testability, reusability, and all of those. Do they understand those principles? And if they can finally debug and run, which means they can actually show it, that is cherry on the cake, so to say. But I think most important is, can you solve a problem? Can you ask the right questions? Can you optimize? Can you think and build on something? As they say, Taj Mahal wasn't built in a day, and I don't think a product is either built in a day, right? So you have to start thinking foundational and start building ground up.
Thank you for that, Bharat. I mean, yeah, because the processes that we try to define, that completely depends on the job description that we actually give out, and the roles that we are looking at, and the kind of people that come to us for who are the applicants. Mudit, I would like to understand. I have a different question for you and Vijay, which is actually about creating a whole balance between the qualitative and the quantitative analysis while we try to look at the hiring process. So help me understand that, how do you actually create a balance between the two, and Do you have any biases also here that no, if they are lacking a qualitative skill, we can still accommodate the candidate here, and if not, if they have more quantitative skills in place, we can just ignore this. So is there a balance that you try to create, and how do you do that?
See, that to a great extent depends on the role at which we are looking for. If we are looking for a person whose role is primarily programming, it's going to be, he or she is going to be just doing job of coding most of the time. Then we go with very simple first principles of programming, whether that person is able to program, and like Jagat and Bharat also said, are they following the right principles? Can they make their code more readable? Very small things, and if a person is making his or her code more readable, I'm sure is then following the right principles and is having empathy towards the other developers who might be maintaining this code in the future. Whether the code is handling all the boundary conditions or not handling the boundary conditions, the number of test cases it will pass, the non-functional aspects of the code which Bharat and Jagat talked about. So when it is for a role such as which is programming centric, we are very. It is actually, in some senses, it is easy because the person programs and you can do the assessment of the programming. It's straightforward. But then when we are talking of roles which is not about just programming but involves designing process, the technical design or the functional design, or it involves a little bit of planning and management as well. So we don't have in our organization, we have we try not to have pure that standard project manager role. All of us are supposed to be very hands-on, functionally as well as technically. So as you go for these different roles, you'll find that this qualitative and quantitative for us is sort of continuum. If you start from one end and start going towards the other. So as you start becoming, you're looking for functional designers, or you're talking of managers who are going to be product owners and so on. There, we start looking more into not necessarily about the specifics of code or the syntax of the code, but there we'll start looking into, are you using the right design patterns? Are there alternate ways of doing this? Why this design pattern? Why not that design pattern? What circumstances do you think this design pattern will work? What circumstances it will not work? So there you reach a point where it's a mix of creativity, imagination, a mix of art and science, right? It's not just about following a Java 8 specific of syntax and trying to write a code over there. There you've got to really think on what is the sort of business problem I'm solving? What should be my considerations if I have 5 design patterns? On what basis would I choose one design pattern over the other? Sometimes I might even, you might have to even take a decision on a technology. Should I be using, what should I use for my orchestration layer? Should I be using NiFi? Should I be using Kafka for my messaging? And you would have decisions being taken on the basis of a lot of variables that you work on. So, for us, and I'm sure it applies to most of the companies as well, that it's the role that decides. And when it is purely about programming, we go with very basic first principles. We don't have to be overly creative over there. There's already very well-defined principles of programming. As long as those principles are being followed, I'm sure that the programmer will write great code. And as the programmer grows in the organization to become an architect, I'm sure during the journey, that programmer would pick up the other competencies that are required. And if you're looking for architects or you're looking for senior positions, then we do look at, much more problem-solving skills, much more creative skills, much more experience-based skills, where the person should have not only experienced real problems, successes and failures, and should have learned from them and should be in a position to apply in our day-to-day work. We fail every day internally. We have a lot of, every day we take decisions and we find that was not a right decision, but we need to fail fast. So people who have learned from their experiences and are able to bring that experience for us actually are one of our best guys. So there's no direct answer. I would say it's totally depending on the role, and that's how we decide on how much importance we give to the qualitative measure aspects and how much to quantitative aspects.
Makes sense with it. I mean, that's completely justified. That completely depends on the role that you have in place for a particular candidate. Vijay, what are your thoughts on this? By when we ask by creating a balance between the two.
Yeah, so more or less, my answer is going to be a mix of what Bharat and Mudit mentioned. It's really not a straightforward answer, right? I mean, this way or that way. It's a blend of both. I'm going to give you more from an HR angle. It's basics, fundamentals, logic. Those are things which you don't really compromise on. However, it's more on the approach they take, and also being innovative, right? You really have to think differently and then approach the problem. So that's what I would really say. Uh, and for us, technical assessments, coding, hackathons, innovation challenges, all are basically a guidance to give us an understanding of what this individual brings to the table. It's not an elimination round. It's more of what they bring to the table and how we can develop them as they come on board. So that's what I would say from an NR point of view.
Thank you, Vijay. And I'm sure that when it comes to creating a balance between the two, the overall strength of the candidate also depends on how much effort that candidate has put in. And you completely judge somebody and evaluate somebody on the basis of the effort that somebody wants to be a part of your organization or not, right? Because that approach, we see that there are sometimes candidates who have a very laid back attitude. "Chalo, ho jata hai to ho jata hai," or else we'll just get off. As Mudit also mentioned, that the last minute know that the candidate comes across to us and say that I have a different offer, I can't join. So we're still battling through that, and let's just hope that with better offers and with better recruitment process, we can put this in place. And as earlier, I was so happy about HRs not letting people hang over that, whether you're recruited or not. This call has also to be taken, and with so many technological process put into place, I'm very much certain that this will come into place. With this, I would actually like to have the closing remarks from all of you for the session, and I would like to thank all of you for sharing such fantastic insights with me across the table today. And I'm absolutely happy that we have discussed some minor elements that needs to be addressed while we actually look at hiring the tech talent, and the precious and the amazing cognition that all of you have shared. I'm sure it's going to help everyone who watches this session, and help them build a better recruitment process. With this, I would like to have closing remarks from all of you. So should we begin with Vijay, please?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure for me to be part of this conversation. Great learning from all the three great panelists. Couple of things come to my mind when it comes to this whole new change which has come on board. One, we got to be innovative as being HR or being anybody, innovate, and we don't know what's coming next year. We don't know what's coming in the next 3 months, but we got to be very innovative, lean into the problem and see how we can be innovative and address processes can be changed, technologies adapt to the technology. There are a lot of new technologies which are there. Try to understand what fits you as an organization and adapt to that. And with all of this, underlining is candidate experience. It's so important for us to bring in the right candidate experience and quality of hires. So it's so important that we bring in the blend of both. Of course, we want to give good candidate experience. We also want to hire the best talent. So with that, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Vijay. Mudit, we move to you.
Thanks, Sukriti, and thanks everyone. It was really a great session, and I'm sure I've learned a lot of things from every one of you. The key thing I would say is, and might be it's because of the generation gap with the new hirees which we are doing. See, when I joined my job, and even today I have a fear of losing my job. I don't think many of the new hirees have that. Even if there are options out there, I'm still very comfortable in my job, and I want to. There's a loyalty factor. There is a stickiness with the job. I feel that stickiness is not the same as it was 20 years back. So I think the candidates today, when they join an organization, they know very well how long they're going to be working over here. They know how long will they be able to stick onto this role. So it is very, very important, as Vijay also said, the candidate experience which you provide in the initial stages, right from the first day of getting the resume all the way till joining date, and sending that welcome mail, what you send in that welcome mail, how personalized you have made that welcome mail, all that whole experience counts significantly for the candidate, and will decide how long will that person stay with you. So it's very, very important that you give a lot of importance to the candidate experience. And I should say it's forget all the technicalities and the formalities behind this. At the end, it's a human interaction, human to human interaction. Use technology where it helps you. Use platforms which help you in selecting the candidates for technological skills. But at the end, do not have do not overly rely on technology. And I'm already sounding like as if I have got something against technology. People talk about AI and ML sort of things influencing how do you recruit the candidates. I still am not fully convinced on whether AI can make a significant difference in the way you select. It's still far away. It's still a human to human interaction. So there has to be the right balance that one has to strike. Every organization has to strike in using the technology in the hiring process. And I would say that as long as we are honest to ourselves, to our organizations, to our jobs, and we are transparent to people around us, people who are coming to our organization, we are upfront and telling them what the expectations are, what they will get, what they will not get. I think those are the aspects that sounds like old school, but I think that works. Whenever I've tried with the newer generation also, that works very well. The bonding is there from right day one itself. So use technology judiciously, use technology where required, where it gives you advantage. Otherwise, go with instinct, go with that human touch. And I think there is still long way to go till technology completely takes over the whole selection process and the onboarding process.
Thank you, Mudit. Jagat, can we have the closing remarks from you?
Thank you, Sukriti. Really interesting discussion. Lot of insights from all the panelists. So as a person in product in the space, I think I can take away a lot of insights from this discussion and go back and work on some of the features that we are working on to make them much better. I very strongly believe that technology in this space is here to stay. We have still not got to a stage in which we would have eliminated the human touch to be doing the decision, but the technology is going to support that decision for some time to come. On the soft skill bit, it will still be a long time before we get to that. But on the technology assessment bit, the technology here to say, if anything, what COVID has done is it has accelerated the process, brought in a lot of innovation in the last 6-7 months, uh, accelerated our product backlog. So there were things which we had planned 1 year down the line, 1.5 years down the line. Those are things for which there's an active demand which is coming from a lot of companies, and we have to get them implemented today. So there's a lot of technology adoption which is happening in the space as a reaction to the new norms. So I'm pretty excited, and I would like to thank all the panelists for all the insights that I've got out of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagat, and thank you for sharing such interesting and amazing trends with us. Because those the tech questions that we just spoke about are things that we hardly discuss. I mean, who would even think of considering such things? But thank you for sharing that. Bharat, moving on to you.
Yeah, no, really interesting conversation, Sukriti. The hour and a half just whizzed by. Uh, I'll make a comment here. One of my early mentors told me that hiring was one of the most important things I would do as part of my job, and I try and remember that every time I go hire somebody. Uh, it continues to be a people job, but I agree with Jagat. We should not shy away. In fact, we should look to leverage technology as much as possible. But I think we need to also look beyond the technology. The test gives us an output. It is an output which provides a perspective into a specific set of strengths of that person. I think you really mentioned it really well. One of the pieces we need to look at is the intent of the candidate, right? And that's that subjective piece, that gray line, which makes us all human, right? And that's the piece we need to keep in mind. I think we need to look at an ability to innovate that folks talked about. But most importantly, we need to remember we are ambassadors of our organizations. It's a two-way street, and always approach this task with heart. It is finally a people conversation. With that, back to you, Sukriti, and thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much, Bharat. With this, I would also like to add that it's the leaders. It's the leaders who are actually anchoring the entire recruitment process, and it's very important for us that we customize the process and craft a customized package of recruitment for each individual that we look for hiring, right? And to put this in process, yes, to create a balance between having technology in place and having the right intent of the right approach of looking at and evaluating the soft skills of the candidate has to be there. So with this, I would like to once again thank all of you for sharing such wonderful insights with me. I'm taking away so many learnings today, and I'm sure all of us have. So thank you once again, and I would also like to thank our live audience for embracing us with your presence. This is just the beginning of our discussions of Roundtable. We'll be back with many more such discussions very, very soon. Do stay tuned for more information. Thank you once again. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sukriti.